Getting sample messages is part of a troubleshooting or issue resolution technique that you should be aware of. The first thing to understand is why would we want to get sample messages. It's worth understanding that they are not essential for every type of issue. They're useful only when there are issues extracting or ingesting items. It's also worth remembering that it takes a lot of time and energy to investigate failures, so it's only really worth doing that if there are a lot of items that fail to extract or ingest. If there are one or two items in a small number of mappings, then it's probably not worth the time and effort to investigate them deeply. Sometimes, though, a new type of message or variation of message is encountered, and that might lead to a sizable number of failures, and in that case, it might be worth investigating more deeply. Let's take a look at the two types of failure to ingest and failure to extract. Let's start with failure to ingest. In this situation, Archive Shuttle has successfully extracted the item from the source environment. But Archive Shuttle hasn't been able to ingest the item into the chosen target environment. It's worth noting that some target environments might have difficulty with some messages, whereas some of the other target environments won't. Some might ingest the same message with no problem. Sometimes even different variations of a target environment will make a difference. For example, an item might ingest into Exchange 2010 or 2013, but not into Exchange 2016 or Office 365. In the situation where Archive Shuttle has extracted the item, then this means that the item lives on disk. It is on the staging area. It is something that we can find, make a copy of, try to open with Outlook, and more. In other words, we can investigate this relatively easily. It's something that we can repeatedly try to process as we have the exported item. Let's take a look at that item on the staging area. Of course, one of the tricky things is that we need to find that item. We've got a knowledge base article that covers that, which is shown in the notes of this module. They can also sometimes be zipped and emailed to us. There is also the option to upload the item to our FTP server. Let's take a look at that. First of all, the FTP server details have to be entered on the system configuration page. Now on the failed item screen, if I select one or more of the items here, I can click on the button Copy Selected Items to FTP, and the items will be uploaded to the location specified in the settings I just showed. That sometimes takes a minute or two, and when they've been uploaded, the column Copy to FTP will be updated. That about covers the situation where we can't ingest an item, or rather lots of items, and we want to take a deeper look at why. But what about those items which we can extract from the source? These are more difficult to investigate. For some source environments, tools external to Archive Shuttle exist that can be used to extract an item. For example, with Enterprise Vault, there is a tool called SaveSet Fetcher. There is some more details about that in the notes for this module. Earlier, we saw how to get the item from the staging area for analysis. But of course, for some items that haven't been extracted, we've not got a copy of them. In fact, unless another tool can be used to obtain the item, then in this situation there is very little we can do. In other words, the real benefit of getting sample items is when items fail to ingest. There is definitely more that can sometimes be done in this situation. When an item fails to extract, there is often not much that can be done. This is worsened sometimes by the customer being on an old version of the original archiving system. Support for this version might not be forthcoming, and will mean that if any investigation takes place, we'll have to work with the customer and the third party to try to analyze the reasons for failure. If we have been able to get hold of sample items, then you can be assured that they will be kept private to the developers who will assist with the analysis and the customer experience team. We don't share them publicly or put them in any generally accessible area. The messages themselves are run through a diagnostic message checker tool and reviewed in depth by developers and the customer experience team. Sometimes this leads to an idea of how we might adapt the message or the product in order to process it successfully. In the past, we've seen, for example, situations where an item has a particular mappy property on it. That can be accepted by the target, so leaving this property behind before the item is ingested has helped. Whatever happens here is unique to the situation, but our team will do its best to investigate the reason why the item can't be ingested, and help formulate a plan to address the issue, or at the very least explain the reasons why.